What happens when a town's lifeblood vanishes overnight, leaving streets silent and businesses boarded up? 10 U.S. border towns are fading into ghostly relics, cursed by history, abandoned by their closest ally. If you're ready to dive into this chilling mystery, drop a quick like and subscribe to uncover more true haunting tales with us. Close your eyes and picture a foggy evening in Point Roberts, Washington, where the border meets the sea. The air is heavy with the scent of salt and pine, and a flickering neon sign from the saltwater cafe cuts through the mist, casting long shadows on empty pavement. Once, this tiny town hummed with Canadian cars crossing the border for cheap gas, groceries, and a quick bite, their chatter filling the air like a heartbeat. Now, the streets are silent, the cafe's windows boarded up, and the gas pumps stand like tombstones. What turned this lively exclave into a ghost town? Why did the Canadians, once neighbors and friends, abandon these places, leaving them to rot under a shadow of betrayal? I first heard about this story in January 2025, scrolling through posts on X, and it's haunted me ever since. Tale not of ghosts, but of a curse born from politics and pride. Let's rewind to January 7th, 2025, a day that shook the U.S.-Canada border to its core. President-elect Donald Trump, fresh off his election certification, made a bold claim: Canada should become the 51st state, or face economic force. His words weren't just rhetoric, they were a match to kindling. Days later, he announced 25% tariffs on Canadian goods, coupled with pointed jabs at then-Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, calling him Governor Trudeau in a taunting post on Truth Social. Canadians, fiercely protective of their sovereignty, didn't just shrug it off. A movement erupted, raw and defiant, under the slogan, "Elbows Up." It was a hockey term, a call to stand tough, and it spread like wildfire on t-shirts, flags, and social media. Imagine if you were there, in a Vancouver bar, hearing locals swear off U.S. shopping trips, their voices thick with anger. You'd feel the rift, like a family feud splitting a shared home. Point Roberts, a 5-square-mile peninsclave, felt the blow hardest. Born from the 1846 Oregon Treaty's sloppy borderline, this town is a geographic oddity, cut off from the U.S. mainland by water and Canada. To reach it, you drive 25 miles through British Columbia, crossing the border twice. Its 1,200 residents depended on Canadians, who owned 70% of the homes and drove 90% of the economy through tourism and shopping. In 2023, Canadian visitors were the lifeblood, buying gas, milk, and even mailing packages from the local post office to save on shipping. But by March 2025, border crossings dropped 25%, then 30% by April. According to U.S. Customs Service data, Tamra Hansen, who ran the saltwater cafe, watched her sales plummet 55% in weeks. "It's like the town's soul was ripped out," she said, her voice breaking in an interview with Axios. "I keep thinking about Tamra, pouring coffee for no one. How do you hold on when your town's fading away? Just think, what would it feel like to wake up in Point Roberts, knowing your neighbors across the border, people you've shared meals with, now see you as the enemy?" The boycott wasn't just about tariffs, it was personal. Posts on X showed Canadians urging each other to buy local, with hashtags like #ElbowsUp trending in British Columbia. Businesses like the Point Roberts Marketplace, once packed with Canadians buying bulk groceries, stood empty. Brian Calder, a resident whose family has lived there since 1895, made bumper stickers reading "Point Roberts supports Canada," a desperate plea for reconciliation. But the border, once a formality, felt like a wall. Blaine, Washington, 20 miles east, tells a similar story. Before the tariffs, its Costco and Trader Joe's parking lots overflowed with Canadian plates. Shoppers crossed for deals on dairy, gas, and clothes, boosting the town's economy by millions annually. Dylan Dean Boyle, head of Bellingham, Whatcom County Tourism, reported a 20% drop in Canadian visitors in January and February 2025. Picture yourself standing in Blaine's Chevron station, where manager Virendra Singh used to sell 200 gallons of milk daily to Canadians. Now, the coolers are overstocked, the milk spoiling. It's eerie, isn't it? A town built on cross-border trust, now a hollow shell. I can't help but wonder, when did a line on a map become so divisive? Sumas, Washington, another border town, felt the same chill. Just a mile from Canada, its gas stations and diners thrived on cross-border traffic. But by April 2025, local businesses reported a 40% revenue drop. The Sumas General Store, a fixture, cut hours and laid off staff. Owner Mary Johnson told Reuters, "We're not just losing customers, we're losing friends." Imagine walking through Sumas at twilight, the neon open signs flickering out one by one. It's like the town slipping into a fog, forgotten by time. Port Huron, Michigan, across the Blue Water Bridge from Sarnia, Ontario, carries its own scars. This manufacturing hub of 30,000 once welcomed Canadian day-trippers, who spent $238 million in Michigan in 2023. The bridge, a symbol of connection, saw 1.3 million crossings annually. But by May 2025, crossings fell 17%, and car trips from Canada dropped 32%, per U.S. Department of Transportation data. Tonya Lee, who runs Sarnia's duty-free shop, saw sales vanish over Easter weekend, typically her busiest time. "It's like they erased us," she said. Picture Port Huron's downtown, where diners like Casey's Pizza once buzzed with Canadian families. Now, the booths are empty, the silence deafening. Do you ever think about how fast a community can unravel when trust breaks? Massena, New York, 15 minutes from Cornwall, Ontario, mirrors this decline. Its rural economy leaned on Canadian shoppers, who made up 10 to 30% of sales at places like Trombino's restaurant. Steve Netto, the owner, used to greet Canadian regulars by name. The border was just a line, he said. Now it's a barrier. By March 2025, his revenue fell 25%. Imagine standing in Massena's Dollar Tree, overhearing locals like Francis Renault call the tariffs a lose. It's chilling to think how quickly history can turn neighbors into strangers. Derby Line, Vermont, and Stansted, Quebec, share a unique bond. The Haskell Free Library, a building straddling the border. A black line on the floor marks the divide, where Canadians and Americans once mingled freely, borrowing books and sharing stories. But by February 2025, Canadian foot traffic slowed to a trickle. Mayor Jody Stone noted empty gas stations and coffee shops, while Sylvie Boudreau, the library's board president, called the tariffs a slap in the face. I found this story, gut-wrenching to towns so intertwined they share a library, now divided by a line that feels like a wound. Newport, Vermont, another border town, relied on Canadians for a third of its summer business. Hotels, restaurants, and shops like the Newport Natural Market thrived on visitors from Quebec. Mayor Rick Uford Chase called the tariff impact stunning. Auto parts, which crossed the border multiple times during production, faced taxes at every step, driving up costs. Picture yourself in Newport's downtown, where the pick-and-shovel hardware store cut staff as Canadian customers vanished. It's like watching a town fade into a sepia photograph, isn't it? Calais, Maine, and St. Stephen, New Brunswick, share a history stretching back to the War of 1812, when they swapped gunpowder for mutual celebrations. These towns even shared fire stations, their firefighters crossing the border to save lives. But tariffs and anti-U.S. sentiment soured the mood. Mayor Alan McEachern said dividing them was like splitting two halves of a circle. Imagine walking Calais streets, where the annual Festival of Friendship with St. Stephen was cancelled in 2025. It's heartbreaking to think of neighbors who shared centuries of history now turning away. Potsdam, New York, 20 miles from Ontario, felt the tariffs on its farms. Dairy farmer Nicholas Gilbert faced a $2,200 tariff on Canadian grain, unable to pass the cost to his cope. Dan Kelleher, who runs an Adirondack tourism agency, saw lodging drop 4% and retail sales fall 20% in February 2025. Picture the fear in Potsdam's fields, where farmers like Gilbert watched their livelihoods erode. It makes you wonder, how do you rebuild when the ground beneath you shifts? Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, across from its Ontario namesake, saw duty-free shops lose 50 to 80% of sales. Barbara Barrett of the Frontier Duty-Free Association called these stores pillars of border communities in Windsor, Ontario, facing Detroit. The auto industry braced for collapse as tariffs hit parts crossing the border multiple times. Elaine Weeks, a Windsor resident, lay awake fearing us drones after Trump's annexation talk. Imagine her anxiety, the border lights visible from her window, now a source of dread. Linden, Washington, rounds out the 10. Like Point Roberts, it relied on Canadians for 70% of sales at places like Edeline Dairy. The International Marketplace cut hours, and the Rubber Duck Museum planned to relocate to Canada. Brian Calder's bumper stickers couldn't save Point Roberts, and Linden faced the same fate. Picture Linden's streets, once vibrant with Canadian shoppers, now eerily still. It's like the town's holding its breath, waiting for a revival that may never come. This story isn't just about economics, it's about people. I keep thinking about Tamara Hansen's empty cafe, or Nicholas Gilbert staring at that tariff bill. Do we still value the bonds between neighbors, or have we let politics poison them? The US and Canada share a $1.2 trillion trade relationship. The world's largest. Canada sent water bombers for California wildfires, sheltered 33,000 Americans after 9/11, and was the Underground Railroad's end for 30,000 to 40,000 enslaved people. Yet in 2025, these towns became collateral damage in a trade war sparked by rhetoric. The Oregon Treaty of 1846, the War of 1812, and countless shared moments wove these communities together, but a few months of tariffs unraveled centuries of trust. As I dug into this story, I couldn't shake the image of Point Roberts' empty streets, like a town frozen in time. Imagine if you lived there, watching your home become a relic. Would you feel anger, betrayal, or just quiet despair? These aren't just statistics, they're families fighting to survive. The lesson here cuts deep. Trust between nations, like trust between people, is fragile. One careless word, one policy, can turn allies into adversaries, leaving towns to fade like ghosts. Maybe these communities will rise again, their streets buzzing with Canadian laughter once more. Or maybe they'll slip into history's shadows, their stories carried only by the wind through empty windows. A haunting reminder of what we lose when we forget our shared past. If this eerie tale kept you hooked, share in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. Stay curious.